Zhang Guangil worked as a trader, and he made business deals with South Koreans in China, thereby associating with the enemy under North Korean law. Zhang was accused of being a spy, and he was dragged to a prison camp. Interrogators attempted to torture a confession out of him. He was beaten so severely that all his teeth were broken, and the back of his head was terribly injured and permanently scarred. Zhang was tortured with a technique known as pigeon torture. His hands were handcuffed behind his back, and he was hanged by the handcuffs so that his feet were suspended from the ground. Zhang was left in this position for days at a time. It was so painful that he felt it was better to die. Zhang confessed to his falsified crimes after 10 months of torture. He was sent to Yodok, one of North Korea's largest prisons, which housed around 50,000 inmates. A sign on the gates greeted the newcomers: "Let's sacrifice our lives to protect the revolutionary leadership of dear leader Kim Jong-il." Many people died under the camp's brutal treatment. Prisoners were awakened at 5 a.m. and given a bowl of rice with beans and corn. Then they were forced to work. In the spring, inmates were required to tend to a field. They had to cover around 1,170 square meters in a day. If they didn't, they were given less food. The winter work was more difficult. The prisoners had to cut and carry huge logs, which were over 4 meters or 13 feet long, for more than 3 kilometers. Many people died from accidents, and all who were injured starved to death since they could not work anymore. Zhang remained in the prison for 3 years until a senior guard decided that he had been wrongly accused. When he was released, he discovered that his home was gone and his family had disappeared. Zhang escaped North Korea within the month and fled to South Korea. Kang Xiaohuan's grandfather was declared a traitor of the people, and he and his family were forced to go to a prison camp. Kang was only 10 years old when he entered Yodok. He immediately noticed the camp's other children. They were all skin and bones, and they looked worse than beggars. Kang was immediately sentenced to hard labor. He had to carry large logs on his shoulder for miles to the camp. If an inmate could not perform the expected work, the guards would order members of the work group to beat that inmate. Prisoners could not refuse a guard's order. If they did, they were sentenced to a prison within the prison camp. Detainees were held for 6 months in a tiny cell, where they were forced to sit in cold, muddy water. Few people survived the micro-prison. Kang witnessed 2 soldiers escape. Both were captured and hanged. Thousands of prisoners were ordered to form one line and march by the hanged men. They were ordered to throw rocks at the bodies and yell, "Down with the traitors of the people." Some people could not bear to throw stones, and the guards would beat them up. Kang spent a decade in the camp before his family was released. 5 years later, he and another former prisoner escaped to China, where he took a ship to South Korea. An Mayang-chol worked as a prison guard for over a decade. An was trained that the prisoners were not to be treated as human beings. He was encouraged to kill any inmate who attempted to escape. If a guard managed to kill an escapee, he was rewarded. Many guards shot innocent people so that these guards would be allowed to go to college. An witnessed one of his colleagues order a prisoner to climb the barbed wire fence. The colleague then shot the prisoner and left for college. The guards murdered for fun as well. An watched 2 girls try to take a piece of noodle from one polluted pond where the garbage was dumped. A guard walked by and he kicked the kids into the small pond. Unfortunately, both of these innocent girls drowned. The event that horrified An the most was when 3 dogs got away from their handler and attacked 5 children. 3 of the children were killed instantly. The other 2 children were still breathing when the guards buried them alive. The guards petted the dogs and fed them special food as a reward. An's father made a few drunken, negative remarks about the country's leadership, and his family was detained. An worried that he would be taken next, so he drove his truck to the shore and swam to China. Later, he fled to South Korea. Ji Hyun-A left North Korea for China 3 times. Each time she was caught and sent back to North Korea. Ji was pregnant the 3rd time she was returned. The North Korea regime does not tolerate mixed-race babies, and anyone who got pregnant in China was forced to have an abortion. At a local police station, Ji was forced to have an abortion without any medication. She was then sent to labor camp, where she witnessed the abuse of other pregnant women. The women were forced to do hard labor, and she could hear the pregnant mothers screaming at night as they miscarried their babies. Ji witnessed a woman give birth at 8 months after a full day of work. The mother was so happy to hold her child, but that moment was short-lived. A guard ordered her to drown her baby. The mother pleaded for mercy, but she eventually did as she was told. Ji was released from prison. She escaped North Korea and was reunited with her family. So that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a like. Until the next video, goodbye.